So this is the run through of AQA paper 3F from November 2017. Hope it's useful, guys. Okay, so circle the cube number. Well, cube numbers, if you remember, are the answers to multiplying a whole number by itself and by itself again. So 2 cubed, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8, so 8 is a cube number, etc. And you're expected to know ideally up to 10 cubed, so 18, 27, 64, 125, 216, 343, etc. Okay, 5 cubed, 6 cubed, 7 cubed, and so on. What we should recognise is that this number here is made by doing 10 times 10 times 10, so that's 10 cubed, so the answer is a cube number, 1000. So cube numbers. A fair ordinary dice is thrown once. Circle the probability of getting a 2 or a 3. Well, what we've got to remember is that the probability of an outcome is equal to the number of that outcome over the total possible outcomes. So that's technically what probability is about. So in this case, the probability of getting a 2 or a 3, that means we've got 2 possible outcomes, 2 outcomes that we want to find, and the total possible outcomes, well, it's a dice, so there are 6, because it's a fair dice, so that means it's got 6 numbers. Excuse me. So 2 out of 6. We've got to circle the decimal that is greater than 1/5. So when it starts talking about decimals, then we should be thinking, well, that's 0.2, and a quarter is 0.25. Now remember, this is a calculator paper, so if you do forget what the decimals are, then you can do the fraction division, 1 divided by 4, and that will give you 0.25 on your calculator, etc. So it's got to be greater than 0.2, but it's got to be less than 0.25. Looks like it's that one. Okay. Okay, so what is a litre a unit of? Well, litres we use jugs for, we measure petrol, etc. So it must be volume capacity. So it's capacity. 2.5 kilograms of carrots cost £1.70. Work out the cost of 3.2. Right, so best thing to do with this is find out the cost of 1 kilogram. So 170 divided by 2.5. Okay, so 0.68 pounds. That's for 1 kilogram. And we want to work out the cost of 3.25 kilograms. So we're going to do 3.25 times 0.68. £2.21. Okay, so proportion. Generally, if it's about things you buy and stuff, then you find out the cost of one of the items. So this is about kilograms, so find out the cost of 1 kilogram, and then you can multiply it by how many kilograms you've got to get the answer. Okay, so we've got a situation where we can choose a variety of items for making a sandwich, and we've got to list all the possible, so it wants all the possible types of sandwich Gina could make. So they've given us a clue of using letters B, H, S. So listing outcomes, it's usually a good way of doing it logically. So B could have been C, then S. Going to change the ham for cheese. So that's all the ones that begin with bread. Okay. Oh no, we could have had bread, ham and pickle. Okay, so bread, ham and pickle. Okay. And then we could have had bread, cheese and pickle. So we've got bread, ham, yep. So one with 2 choices, yep, and one with 2 choices, yep. And then we could have had a roll with ham and salad, We could have had a roll with cheese and salad. We could have had a roll with ham and pickle, and we could have had a roll with cheese and pickle. Okay, so those are the possible outcomes that could have happened there. The question says what fraction, so as soon as we see the word fraction we should be thinking of two numbers, a numerator and a denominator. What fraction of the possible types of sandwiches have cheese and pickle? Okay, so cheese and pickle. So cheese and pickle, cheese and pickle. So that's 2 out of 8, which again is a fraction, so we should cancel it down. So 2/8. Remember, it's calculator paper, so if you're not sure of how to cancel down, use your fraction key. 2/8, enter, and then it'll cancel it down for you and tell you that the answer is 1/4. Okay, so ABC is a right angle triangle, so under the you and what, we underline what's important, and then we ask ourselves what does that tell us? Well, it tells me that we're going to be dealing with a triangle as that kind of shape. Different orientations of course, but they're still right angle triangles. It's telling me some coordinates, so what we've got to realise about coordinates is they're always in the order x-axis followed by y-axis, so we go along and then up or down, or we go backwards and then up and down, depending on whether it's negative or positive. So the point A is at -3, -2 label. The point B is at 1, -2, so 1, -2. And the point C is a point on the line y equals 4. Okay, so when we see that, we should be thinking that every coordinate has 4 in the y position. That's what y equals 4 means. So every coordinate will be doing this, going through 4 on the y-axis, but every coordinate, so that could have been 2, 4 and so on. That's what y equals 4 means. And it wants us to create a right angle triangle, so we could put across there, and that will create a right angle triangle. We could put across there, and that will create a right angle triangle as well. So a couple of possible answers there, and then of course we've got to join it together because it says draw it. So draw the triangle. Okay, but it also could have been, remember, it could have been that way around as well. Okay, the question then goes on and it wants us to work out the area of triangle. So again, you what? Underline what's important and what's it telling us? It's telling us about the area of a triangle, so we should be thinking of formula. So area equals 1/2 times the base times the perpendicular height, and we should have a picture in mind that kind of reminds us that the base length and the height are measured at right angles to each other. So for this triangle we can see that because they told us it was on a centimetre grid, then this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we know that B equals 4 and H equals 6. So the area is going to equal 1/2 times 4 times 6, which equals 12 square centimetres. Okay, always put the units down guys, because you never know whether the question will give a mark for units. Usually you can tell if there's no units on the answer line, but if you're in that habit then you can't lose that mark if it appears anywhere. Okay, so the next one is talking about a number machine. So basically we've got to think what this is telling us, this equation here, or formula. It's telling us that Q is equal to 7 times R, and then we subtract 2. So BidMath says we do the timesing first, so it's going to be R times 7, and then we're going to subtract the 2, and that's going to give us the output of Q. 7R take away 2. Okay, so that was that question. The question then says write down the output of Y in terms of X. So we follow it through. So we were doing X add 5, and then we were times it by 3. Well, what to remember is we've actually done X plus 5, so therefore it has to be in a bracket, because that makes sure the answer to that is achieved first, and then we're timesing by 3. So normally we put the timesing bit in front of the bracket, and the output's Y. So we write Y equals. So Y equals 3 lots of X plus 5. Okay, so input sheets. Alright, so farmer's got 580 eggs, and the boxes come in 3 sizes. Okay, so he wants at least 10 boxes of 20 eggs. Well, the minimum then for this would be 10 times 20, so that uses 200 eggs. At least 15 boxes of 12 eggs, so the minimum would be 15 times 12, which is 180 eggs. And at least 25 boxes of 6 eggs, so the minimum would be 25 times 6, which is 150 eggs. Okay, so if we do the minimum, then we've got 400, 530. Okay, and that's used eggs in, and that's used 10 boxes, 25 boxes, 50 boxes. So that's in 50 boxes. Okay, so we've got 4 more boxes, so 4 boxes to fill with 50 eggs. Question mark. The reason I'm putting a question mark is because we don't know whether 4 boxes will do that or whether we've got to adjust some of these, but we'll see. So, can I do 50 in 4 boxes? Okay, so 2 of those makes 24, 1 of those makes 30, and 1 of those makes 50. Okay, so 1 box of 20, 2 boxes of 12, and 1 box of 6, and 20 plus 24 plus 6, just do a check, 40, 50, yeah, that works. Okay, so for the answer then, we will have 11 boxes of 20 eggs, so that's going to be 220, let's do a check. We'll have 15 plus an extra 2, so 17 boxes of 12 eggs. Okay, so 120 plus 84 is 204, and we'll have 26 boxes of 6 eggs. So we'll have 26 boxes of 6 eggs, which is 120, 156. And then if we add, this is our check, then we've got 10, 80, 580. So we can be quite happy that we've done that right. Okay, so that's how that question could be answered. Work out what the minimum requirement is, and then you need 50, and then see what you can do to get the 50. Okay, so Megan says if you add 3 multiples of 10, well, there's the key information. So multiples of 10 mean 10, 20, 30, etc. So they have to be in the 10 times table. And if you add any 3 multiples of 10, the total must be a multiple of 10 and a multiple of 3. Is she correct? Okay, so any 3 multiples of 10. Alright, so any 3 multiples, well, we'll do some trials, see what goes on. 30, 60, multiple of 3. Yep. 50, 90, just a random selection, 140. So 140, 280. And is 280 a multiple of 3? No, it's not. Okay, 270 would be a multiple of 3, because 27 is a multiple of 3. And 10 more on that, 10 is not a multiple of 3, so 280 is not. Just check that, gives you 280, yep. Okay, so if you had any 3 multiple of 10, must be multiple, so we've shown that it doesn't work. So, no, got to answer the question, remember guys, so no, she is not correct. Example shown, not a multiple of 3. Okay, so that's one way of doing that question, guys. Alright, so number 11 talks about a fair spinner, 12 equal sections, so each one's got a probability of, probability of each section happening is equal to 1/12, that's what the question's telling us. Label each section so that when the arrow is filled, the probability that lands on A is 1/6. Well, we've got to remember that 1/6 is equivalent to 2/12, so A would be those two. The probability that lands on B is equal to the probability that lands on C. The probability that lands on D is double the probability that lands on A. Okay, so let's do this one next. So if D is double what it lands on A, well, we coloured in 2 for, well, we labelled 2 for A, because that was 2/12. So this must be 4/12. So D, 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 and D. And because B and C are equal, then we look at how many we've got left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 3 of them will be B, and 3 of them will be C. Okay, so that's how that spinner could be labelled to give these probabilities of each outcome happening. Okay, so A take away B equals 5. So it's telling us to work out the value of 2 lots of A take away B. Well, that means we're doing 2 lots of 5, which will be 10. Work out the value of 7 lots of A take away 7 lots of B. Well, what we've got to recognise here that this is equivalent to 7 lots of A take away B when we factorise it. So it's going to be 7 lots of 5. So it's going to be 35. And it then wants us to work out the value of B minus A. Okay, well, if A take away B is equal to 5, then if we just swap this about by rearranging it, then A is equal to 5 plus B, and B take away A is equal to negative 5. So basically we just swap this about to make it B minus A. So the B went across by adding, so we added B, and then we took away A, and we took away 5 from both sides. That's why we ended up with that. So B minus A is equal to negative 5. We could also recognise that if we wanted to, that A take away B, if we put a negative sign in front of it, then that equals negative 5, and the negative of that is going to be negative A plus B, which is B take away A. So we can do it algebraically as well if we wanted to. Okay. Alright, so this question talks about a cube has an edge length of 0.9 meters. It wants you to work out the total surface area. Okay, so again, underline what's important, what triggers the approach. So total surface area we've got to recognise is the areas of all faces added together. That's what total surface area is. So any shape we've got, so for example if we had a triangular prism, then we'd have to add up 2 triangles and 3 rectangles. Okay. This particular shape is a cube, so again, what's that tell us? It tells us that all lengths are equal. So we know this is going to be 0.9 as well. It also tells us that there's 6 faces, all squares. So that's what we recognise from the word cube. So the area of one face is equal to. Okay, now got to be careful here because the question says give your answer in square centimetres. They've given us this in metres, so what we've got to recognise is that we should change this into 90 centimetres. We know that because 1 metre is equal to 100 centimetres, so 90 centimetres is the same as 0.9. Okay, So we now know that the area of one face is going to be 90 times 90, which is going to be 8,100 square centimetres, and we know that the total surface area is 6 of those, so the total surface area is equal to 6 times 8,100, 48,600, so 48,600 square centimetres. Okay, so this kind of question is going to be careful that you recognise that they're talking about two different units, so convert one to the other. They wanted the answer in square centimetres, so we had to turn metres into centimetres, and recognising the properties of the shape helps do the question. Okay, so this question talks about an investment at 4% simple interest. So two types of interest you've got to be familiar with in your exams, guys. Simple interest means you just get the same interest each year. There's no compounding of the interests. So compound interest, you've got to be careful if it says compound interest, because it means at the end of every period you get a bit more interest on top of what you had before, and then the next period you get even more interest because you've got a little bit extra from the previous period. So it's being compounded, being added onto. Whereas simple interest is the same interest every year. That's what simple interest is. So the thing we're going to do here then is we're going to work out 4% of 1,700. Okay, a quick way of doing that on a calculator is to do the multiplier, the decimal multiplier. So if we divide that by 100, it gives us the decimal equivalent, and this is called a percentage multiplier. And the reason is because you multiply by it, it gives you the answer as if you've done the percentage. So 0.04 times that, well, 4 17s is 68, so this will be £68 per year. The question wanted 3 years, so for 3 years we do 3 times 68, 182.04, so the answer will be £204. So that's the answer. Okay, just check that very quickly. Pretty sure it's okay, but just in case. Everybody's human, everybody can make mistakes. So 0.04 times 1,700, 68 times by 3, 204. Yeah. Okie dokie. So that's another one. Alright, so we've got a map, and it's telling us that 1 centimetre represents 50 kilometres. Okay, so it wants you to work out the actual distance between P and Q. So that means getting your ruler and being very careful to line up your 0 and measure that distance as accurately as you can. So in this case, the distance between P and Q is 7 centimetres exactly. So it says work out the actual distance. So work out the actual distance, and we're going to do 7 times 50, because every centimetre was worth 50 kilometres. So that's going to give us 350 kilometres. Okay, so that's that part of the question. The question goes on, and it talks about the town R is 200 kilometres due south of P. Well, due south means you're going to go downwards, so south, and we do 200 divided by 50, and that gives us 4, so measure 4 centimetres. Alright, so we get our protractor, and we make sure we line that up as best as we can parallel to the north line given to us on the question. So parallel to the north line, make a mark for due south, and that's P. Make sure we do the right one. So as parallel as you can get, and then we measure 4 centimetres. Okay, and it says mark it with the letter R. So again, we had a map question, and we had to go through, and the question said 200 kilometres due south of town P, and mark R on the map. So again, we tick off to say that we've done all that. That's useful sometimes to make sure we've done it all. And we made sure we used the scale, so every 50 centimetres, so every 50 kilometres in real life was worth 1 centimetre on the map. and we went down 4 centimetres due south of P. Okay, so question 16 talks about a train and it has 1 first class carriage and 6 standard class carriages. Okay, so the first class has 64 seats, that's information, but this is telling us to do a calculation, so we want to do 3/8 of 64. Okay, so 24. Alright, so on your calculators, guys, remember you've got your fraction key, so use that, put in your 3 and 8, press the times key, 64 equals, and it'll give you 24 seats. So if 24 are being used, it means 40 are not being used. So each standard carriage has 78 seats and 7/13 is being used in each carriage, but there are 6 standard carriages. So what we've got to remember is we're doing 6 times 78 times 7/13. So again, you do this on your calculator, so we'd end up with that divided by 13 is 1, divide that by 13 is 6, so we end up with 42 times 6, 240, 252 used. Okay, so let's just check that calculation. Let's do it quickly in my head. 6 times 78 times 7 equals, divide by 13 equals 252, that's fine. Okay, so are more than half the seats of the train being used? Okay, so total used is 252 plus 24, so 276 seats. More than half the seats being used, well, total seats was the 1 first class plus the 6 standard class, so 6 times 78 equals, so that's the number used, so this is the total seats. Okay, so we've got 64 plus 6 times 78, so 532. So if we do 532 divide by 2, so divide by 2, so 266. The question says, are more than half the seats being used? Well, 276 is greater than 266, so yes, more than half used. Okay, so showing you workings. So we've gone through the question, we've found out the answers, and we've checked that we've done everything. So we've gone through and ticked off, use that, use that, use that, done that, and we have shown working. Okay, so that should be the answer to that question. Alright, so the next one, the circle equation which has the solution x equals 6. Okay, so 6 take away 3 is equal to 3, and 6 divided by 2 is equal to 3. Well, there we go, first one. Okay, could check in the other ones, but we can see here that 3 plus 6 is 9, divided by 2 is 4.5, that's not equal to 6. 3 6s are definitely not 36, and 6 divided by 6 is 1, not 0. Okay, so that's that one. X is greater than 5 and less than or equal to 9. So x is greater than 5 but less than or equal to 9. So x is bigger than 5, greater than, less than or equal to 9. So which one of these is it? So it's not that one, not that one, not that one. So it's this one here. Okay. Alright then, so the following data comes from a large sample survey. Okay. Make 3 comparisons of males and females at the concert. Okay, so proportion of the audience. Okay, so proportion is fraction, percentage, decimal. So here we've got the percentage. So here we can say there was way more females as a proportion than males. 83%. Is about 5 times greater. Okay, so average age. Well, when we look at this, we can see that the mean average has been used. So the mean average suggests females typically older than males. Okay, only typically, because obviously the oldest person at the concert could have been a male. The spread, well, we've got to remember the spread is measured by the range. So when you do a set of data, the range is the measure of the spread. For our party data is from the minimum to the maximum. So that's always the max number, take away the min number. So basically they're saying here that the female ages were more spread out. So basically the distribution of the female ages was much more spread out. Okay, so that's one way of answering those. Okay, so we've got a Venn diagram here. We've got to remember that this funny symbol means the universal set, so it's all of them. So in this box here we have to make sure there's the total number of players. So let's have a look. So in this tennis tournament, 98 players took part in singles only. So singles only is this bit here, so that's 98. 34 players took part in the doubles only. So 34 players did that. So we've done that bit of information, Twice as many players took part in the singles as took part in the doubles. Okay. So let's have a look. So we don't know something. So the U-What principle comes into play. Not sure what to do. So we've underlined key information. Yeah, so we've got singles only, doubles only. What does it tell us? Well, we put it into the right part of the diagram. How can we help ourselves? Well, if we don't know something, we call it X. So how many players took part in both the singles and the doubles? Well, both singles and doubles is this section here. We don't know that at all, so we'll call it X. Okay, so twice as many players took part in the singles as took part in the doubles. So when we've got an X involved, so call something X, create an equation. That's basically how we're going to help ourselves, and then we can answer the question. Okay, if you're not sure what U-What is, guys, then there is a video on my channel to explain it here. Okay, so we've got this situation where we can create an equation. So we know we've got an equals for an equation, and the way the words are saying, it says it says twice as many players took part in the singles. So the singles was 98 plus X, and that's took part in the doubles. So twice the doubles. So the doubles was X plus 34. So we can see here then that we've got a situation where twice the number of people in the doubles equals the singles. Okay, so classic solving equation time. So we multiply out the bracket. So we've got 2x's plus 68 is equal to 98 plus x. Subtract an x from both sides tells us that we've got x plus 68 equals 98. So x is equal to 30. So the answer to this question then is 30, because x is going to go there, and so basically 30 players took part in so 30 players did both events. Okay, so that's how that question could have been answered. So we've put in the information we knew, we've thought about how to answer this question. We weren't quite sure what to do, so we used the U-What principle. The H is help yourself by, if you don't know something, call it X and then create an equation and solve it. So we didn't know this, so call it X, but then we know how many singles the people there are. There's 98 plus X, and we know how many doubles players there are. There's 34 plus X. And we knew from the way that was worded that we could then work out an equation and solve it. Okay, so that's that question. Alright, so we've got a question here that talks about the distance by road. Okay, 140 miles is information. Tom travels by coach. The coach leaves Newport at 1:30. Alright, so it's an average speed. So once we see average speed, then we know that that equals total distance divide by total time. Okay, so if we've got that assumption, then we know that 50 is the average speed, and that equals a total distance of 140 miles divided by the time. So we can swap that about. So time is going to equal 140 divided by 50. Okay. So 140 divided by 50 equals, so that's 2.8 hours, but because we're doing time, we'll then need to multiply that by 60 to get the number of minutes. So times by 60 equals 168 minutes. Alright, and then we can go backwards by saying that must be 2 hours, because 2 hours is 120, so it's 2 hours and 48 minutes. So the answer to this question then, if it leaves at 1:30, then we're going to do 1:30 PM plus 2 hours 48 minutes. Well, that's going to give us 3, so if we do the timeline, so 1:30, 2 o'clock, that's 30 mins, and 2 hours 30 would be another 2 hours, so that's 4, so that's 2 hours, and that leaves us with 18 minutes, so that's going to be 4:18 PM. Okay, so the answer to that question then will be 4:18 PM. Alright. This question then says, in fact, the coach has a lower average speed. How does this affect the arrival time? Well, if they're travelling slower, it takes longer. So, travelling slower, so it takes longer. So, arrival time will be later than 4:18. Okay, so that's how that question could have been done. Okay, so we've got a classic question involving angles. It's not asked us to give any reasons for answers, but I think it's useful to always try and justify why you do things, particularly while you're practicing. And so it's telling us that this is a parallelogram. So straight away we know that this angle here is going to be the same as that angle there. And we know that this angle here is the same as that angle there, and so on. Alright, so let's see what information we can find then. So, okay, so it'd be useful to know this angle, because then we can use the angles in... okay, so AB equals BP, so they're telling us that this is an isosceles triangle. Isosceles triangle. Which means that if that's 51 degrees, then this angle up here must also be 51 degrees. Then we've got angles in a triangle, so 180 take away 51 take away 51 is 78 degrees. That's 102, so 78 degrees, then this must be 78 degrees. And we've got lots of ways of doing this now. We can either add up all the angles, knowing that this is also the same as this one here, 4x and 4x. That will create an equation for us. Or we could recognise that because it's a parallelogram, that means that that side is parallel to that side. And what we've got is, this end here, is we've got co-interior angles, which add up to 180 degrees. So we recognise that we've got co-interior angles add to 180 degrees. So because we've got something called x, we create an equation. So this angle here, the whole of it, is 4x's plus 78 equals 180 degrees. So 4x's must equal 102 degrees because we subtract 78 from both sides, and then we divide by 4 both sides. So x is going to be 25.5 degrees. Okay. 425 is 100, 4 halves is 2, 102 degrees. So the answer to that question will be that. It doesn't ask us to give reasons, so we can get away with just saying x equals that, but of course we've used those. As I say, you could have done this another way. We could have said that that was 4x as well. This one here, all of that is 4x. So angles in a quadrilateral add up to 360, so we would have had 8x plus 2 lots of 78, which is 140, 156 degrees. That equals 360 degrees. So 8x is going to equal, well, if I take 156 away from that, I get 204 degrees. And then if I divide by 8, I get x is equal to 25.5 degrees. Lots of different ways of doing that question. Didn't really matter which way you chose, as long as you got the right answer, of course, guys. Okay, so show that 268 can be written as the sum of a power of 3. Well, again, under U, what? Trigger that. That's a trigger word, trigger sentence, trigger part. So what does it tell us? If it's a power of 3, then it's going to be 3 to the power of something and a square number. Okay. So if we go through our power series of 3, then the power series of 3 goes powers of 3. It goes 3, 9, 27, 3 cubed. 3 to the power of 4 is 81, times it by 3 every time, of course, 243. And 243, that's 8, that's 3 to the power of 5. Let's see, don't need to do any more because that would be bigger than 268. And square numbers, well, we've got to recognise that square numbers are the answers to multiplying whole numbers by themselves. So the square numbers go 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, and so on. Okay, so we're looking for 268, so it would be nice if something could go with that, and we can see that 243 plus 25 would give us 268. The reason I chose that one is because it's close to 268. If it wasn't that one, then we'd have to try the next one down, and then we'd have to go bigger on our square numbers. So the answer to this then is going to be 3 to the power of 5. Because we've got to remember that this is 3 to the power of 5, that's 3 to the power of 4, and so on. But it says, show that it can be written as the sum of a power of 3, so it can be 3 to the power of 5 plus a square number, 25. That equals 268. Okay. Okay, so y is inversely proportional to x and k is a constant. Alright, so we've got to remember our proportion graphs. So direct proportion goes through that like 0. And that's always y equals kx, and inverse proportion, so that's direct proportion. Inverse proportion is the one that always goes down, where every coordinate multiplied together, so if that was y and x, then every coordinate x, y on this graph, then when you multiply those, equals the constant, so xy equals k. So when we look at this, it says to us, right, okay, so it's not given us that one, so we need to recognise that this could be written as y equals k over x, because we can sort that about, or x is equal to k over y. Either way, when we look at this, we can see that y equals k over x is there, so that was the one. Alright, so 25. We've been given the formula for pressure, and it wants us to work out the force when the pressure is 24 and the area is 3. Okay, so the pressure is 24. It doesn't tell us the force, but it does tell us the area is 3. So we want F to be the subject, so we times everything by 3. That means we'll end up with 3 divided by 3 here, which is 1, so that's 1F. But then we've got to multiply this by 3 as well to balance the equals. And so 24 times 3 equals F, 72. So the unit's 72 newtons, so it'll be that one. Okay, so we've got a frequency diagram to use, and we've been given lots of information. So basically we need to put that information in. So it says 42 men and 38 women. 44 of these have a voucher. Okay, so that's the first bit of information we can put in. So 44 have a voucher. Alright, so total number of people visiting. So 42 plus 38 is the useful information. So 70, 80. Use your calculators, guys. So that should be 80, because there's 80 people. So 44 have a voucher. So 80 take away 44 is going to be 36. So 36 don't have a voucher. Alright, so 3 times as many men as women do not have a voucher. Alright, so that's telling us that men to women is the ratio of 3 to 1, so that means 3/4 and 1/4. Okay, so 3/4 of them do not have a voucher, so we want to do 3/4 of 36, so this is going to be 3/4 of 36. So 3/4 of 36, 1/4 is 9, so 3 of them will be 27, and this will be 1/4, so this will be 9. Okay, we were told in the question there was 42 men, so they said there was 42 men. We've seen 27 of them are here, so this means this must be 15, and we know that's 44, so this must be 29, and our check then would be to add these two up, and we find they give us 38. 29 plus 9 is 38, and they told us in the question that there was 38 women. Okay, so that's how that question could be done, and that's going to be your final expected answer, guys. Alright, so we've got a question here involving a voucher. It takes 15% off the bill. After using the voucher, the bill for a meal is £27.20. How much was the bill before using? Alright, there's your clue. It's about reverse percentages. So, reverse percent. So, we had a bill. We took 15% off, and it gave us the answer of £27.20. Now, taking 15% off means I had 85% left. And 85% left means I'm timesing by 0.85. So if I want to come back to the bill, then instead of timesing by 0.85, I'm going to do £27.20 divided by 0.85. Okay, so £27, switch the calculator on, of course. So £27.20 divided by 0.85 equals 32. Okay, so the answer to this question then is £32. Now our check, 15% of 32, well 10% is £3.20, so that's £4.80, and 32 take away £4.80 does give us £27.20. So again, it's useful to do your check to make sure that the information that was given in the question does work for the answer you got. That's quite often the most common mistake on this is students work out what 15% of £27.20 is and add it on, and then they'll find that the answer they get, if they do 15% of that, take it off, it doesn't get them back to the same answer. Whereas this check shows that we have done it the correct way. Okay, so this question asks us to rearrange, so that means we're going to leave a letter, if it's positive, where it is, and then move everything else away from it, because basically we want to make t the subject, we need t as positive equal to the rest of whatever. So this term has the subject letter in it, so we leave that term till last. The t is already positive, so we're going to leave it this side, so that means we're going to get the u off that side. So to get that 0 we have to do u take away u, but then the equals tells us to balance this. So our next line of argument is v take away u equals at. When you've got two letters next to each other, it always means you're timesing. So the opposite is divide, so we rearrange, do the opposite operations. The opposite of adding there was take away, the opposite of timesing is divide. So we end up getting v take away u divide by a is equal to t. So our answer line is t equals v minus u over a. Okay, so this next question talks about complete this table with consistent metric units. So metric units, modern units. So distance and time is meters second, so speed will be meters per second. And acceleration, well, acceleration is the speed per unit of time, so that's going to be meters divided by second squared. Because you end up doing meters per second divide by seconds, well, from your fractions work, guys, we've got meters per second divide by seconds over 1. When we do fractions, we end up timesing, so that becomes that. Meters times 1 is meters, seconds times seconds is seconds squared. Okay, so that's how acceleration units work, so meters per second squared. Okay, so here we have to multiply out this bracket squared. Well, we've got to remember squaring means that we multiply the same thing by itself. So this is going to be x take away 8, x take away 8. Now, lots of ways of doing this. Some people use FOIL. Some people use separate brackets, so there's lots of different ways. Personally, I always recommend the grid because it helps you to do other things, and we're used to the grid in a sense from primary school, doing multiplications. So x times x is x squared, x times negative 8 is negative 8x, x times negative 8 is negative 8x again, and negative 8 times negative 8 is positive 64. These two terms here always get added together because they're like terms, they're just telling us how many x's we have. So in this question then we end up with x squared, adding these two together gives us negative 16x, and then we've got plus 64. Okay, if we want to check, then give x a simple value, so give x a value of 9. The reason why I'm saying a simple value is because I want this one to be positive, that just makes it a little bit easier. So 9 take away 8 all squared, well that's 1 squared. And then we've got to do 9 squared, take away 16 lots of 9, plus 64. So 81, 90, 144, plus 64. So we end up with 81 plus 64, take away 144, 145, take away 144 is equal to 1. So our check happily worked. Okay, so that's the end of that paper, guys. Hope you find it useful. Hope the answers are all correct. I do try, but everybody's human. Good luck in your exams, guys.